Hey, welcome back. In today's video, I will talk about the migration related errors that we all face when try to run migrations. So after this video, you'll never face any migration related errors. So we pulled in repo from GitHub, and when we first do git clone, and there is no .env file, and there is only .env .example, and then if we try to run PHP artisan migrate, then it will say like this. So if there is no .env, it will say, it will consider that as production environment. Wish to run this, yes, and if I do yes, it will give this kind of error. So no connection could be made because target machine refused it. Of course, there is no configuration to connect with database. That's why this kind of error. So first thing first, we need to create the .env file. Alright, so after you duplicate, make sure all these are correct. So if they are not correct, after making this, let's try to run it again. Alright, same error as previously. Let's create a database. So in my case, there is a different error because this DB port, make sure that port matches with your current port. So let me show you. So my SQL is running on this 3360 port in my case. So depending on your machine, you can check what port this MySQL is running. So 3360, but here I have 3306. So make sure that is correct. So after you correct that, let's rerun the migration. Let's try to run it again. We should get a different error this time. Okay, this hopefully this ran successfully because I have already this database name and this username is also correct. Alright, so let's create a new database. So let's put it random and let's try to migrate it again. This time let's make this username. So you'll get according to the error, so you can read the error and you can easily understand that what went wrong. So this root 3 is trying to connect at localhost, but that is not the user. Alright, so and suppose our database name is some different database name that doesn't exist, then you'll get a clear error that is easy to debug. There you go, unknown database. So according to the error, you can read and make the changes. So if you get target machine refused, database name incorrect, and all similar kind of error, and just go to .env file and make sure your configuration is right. Alright, so that is the first kind of error. Let's move on to the next. When you first run the migration, so it will first create this migrations table and it will make all the rows which represent all the migration files. So you should never make any changes in this table, migration table, unless you know what you are doing. Because suppose what you do is, suppose you accidentally deleted this or you altered something here. So suppose you altered something here or you deleted this accidentally. Now let's see what happens. I deleted the user entry from migration table and we have everything correct. And now next time, let's suppose you try to migrate, then you'll get this error, which is common error that you will get. So base table or view already exists. So what is it is doing is, there is already user table and this migration is again trying to create a new user table, which MySQL doesn't allow to create the table with same name. That's why it is throwing error. So when we run PHP artisan migrate, it will look to this table, and if that is already run, it will not run that. Otherwise, it will create the new table. So how to solve this if you ever face this? So one way is to manually delete the users table. So if you are in initial phase of development and you do not have much data, then another workaround is to run PHP artisan migrate fresh. Alright, so this command will drop all the table and then rerun the migration. So if you have data in these tables, then you cannot afford to run this command because it will drop all the tables. So to fix that, what you can do is you can add new entry to this migration table which matches to this file name. Just go and copy this. Let me copy the file name, this file name. Don't copy this PHP, and then go here and add one new entry with this and make batch 1. There we go. And now it shouldn't give any error. Yeah, so if you are just developing your application and you do not have data, just run php artisan migrate fresh and it will drop everything from your database and then rerun the migration. Another tip, never touch this migration file, or if you messed up anything, then you can put the new entry here or manually delete the table. Alright, so let's move on to the next issue that you might face is, suppose I created a new table. Let's create a new table. Alright, so let's create a post table migration, and in this post table, let's create a name. Suppose we want to create a foreign key constraint like so, and similarly we created, let's say we created integer user ID. Alright, so in this table we want to create a user ID field in post table, and then we have done a foreign key constraint, so we constrain this with the users table. So in this case, if you try to run this migration, you'll get an error. So let's try to run this migration. There you go. So you'll get this kind of error, cannot add foreign key constraint. So the reason we cannot add this constraint is because this user ID, so the type of this user ID, column type, should match with the column type of this ID. So this ID is unsigned, this big increments, which is unsigned big integer. Alright, so we need to, instead of making this integer, we need to make unsigned big integer. And then now if you try to run this, so if you try to run this, this time you get different error because we have fixed the previous issue with foreign key constraint, but it already created a table called post. So when we run migration, it already created post, it ran this, and at this point it failed. So after creating the migration, or after creating a table, when we try to add the foreign key constraint, at that time it failed. That's why we are getting this error. So in order to solve that, you can do a couple of things. So if you don't care about data in your database which is in development phase, you can just roll back, or you have always this option, php artisan migrate fresh. This is the ultimate command for development environment, and if you have already seeders, then you can run just seed and that will retain all the data. But in if you have all data that you want to that you don't want to remove any data from database, you can, what you can do is just go to database and manually delete that post table and rerun the migration. Simple as that. Just drop this and then rerun the migration, php artisan migrate. This time it ran successfully. So there is a sorter syntax in Laravel 8, which is table foreign ID, I guess. Yeah, foreign ID, user ID, just like this, and then you can say constrained like so. So these 2 lines equals to this 1 line. Okay, so let's move on to next tip. So suppose after development and after doing some development, you realize that in posts table, you need a body field, and then you create a new migration for that. Then you create a new migration to just to add one column to the post table. All right, so let's do that. PHP artisan make migration, add body column to posts table. So when you are creating this kind of migration, just try to be more specific as possible what you are doing with that migration, and then enter, add body column to post table. There you go. And then we add like this, and here we drop that column, table, drop column, body. So if you just migrate it, it will create a body column in post table. All right, so let me roll back it and let me demonstrate what error you can get when you try to migrate it. So suppose you have put this this file above the post table. So for some reason, while merging or while renaming or whatever you want to do, you have messed up the file name, and this file name is just above this post table. All right, so let's for example, let's rename it, make the error manual error. Suppose let's say I make it really low value, and it will go to, all right, so it goes above the post table. All right, so now in this case, now you made this change and pushed this code to repository, and when someone tries to run migration for first time, let's simulate that by doing fresh command. So suppose someone is running this migration for first time, then let's see what happens. There you go, you'll get this kind of error, base table or view not found, random post. So what's the issue here is it when you run PHP artisan migrate, it tries to run from according to this file name serially. So first it will create users, then password reset, failed job, personal access token, and when it comes to this file, it tries to create this schema table post. So this command expects there to be post table, and it is just trying to add the column, but it doesn't find post table because that migration file is just below this file. All right, so that's why the serial or the queue of the file is necessary. So this file should be sorted. These file names are very important. That is the reason these file names follow this kind of convention. According to timestamp, it will create the file. So if you follow all the convention, this file should always be below the post table. Due to some reason, if this comes above the main table, then you should just rename it and put it back. Just rename it and make it some higher value than this 10, and then it will go to its place. So now if we try to run this, it will do successfully. There you go. So hope you learned something out of this video, and I'll see you on another video. Bye.